and welcome back to my channel. I'm here with my November plan with me. So as usual, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a quick flip through of how October is going, followed by a look at how I'm planning to set up November. We'll get to the time lapse and I'll come back at the end and let you guys know how everything went. So you'll see on here, I've kind of picked out my colors for November, and let me go ahead and move some stuff out of the way. I'm planning to keep a pretty basic color palette. I've been really enjoying this like bronze rose gold, these bronze rose gold kind of tones, and so I thought I would just build off of that and go ahead with a dark green. This is 228, and I wanted to have another gray, so this is N75, and then I've got a Tombow brush pen and a gray Staedtler, and I'll probably end up pulling out my black Pentel sign pen as well. So this is going to be my color scheme for the month, but let's go ahead and start with October. Let's see, so October is, you'll see it is this kind of peachy color that was my main color for the month. So let's go ahead and flip to October, and I have to say I love October. I really enjoy having a little bit of fun for, you know, like the start of fall, the Halloween season and all that. So I just really have enjoyed all month coming back and flipping to this page and just looking at it. I think it came out really well, and it just makes me happy to see a little bit of doodles and fun lettering and that kind of stuff. I was realizing, especially this month, and I'm sure I've been doing it for a long time, but it was really starting to bug me this month, that I put way too much information on my dailies and it gets kind of cluttered. So what I wanted to do was to start using my monthly and my weekly level task lists to kind of control that and only put the things that I think I can actually get done on my dailies. However, I realized that the way that my system was working, I wasn't leaving a lot of room for my tasks, and I have to say this is probably the first time in months that I've ever used up the entire space that I had dedicated for my tasks. And so I'm going to change around my setup a little bit on this particular spread for November, just to kind of see if I can figure out a way to make it work a little bit better for me. Memories and gratitude. So as usual, I've got a couple of memories already on the page, and I've also got a couple that I need to actually go through and letter and do all that kind of stuff for. So I just put them in pencil down at the bottom, and then whenever I have a free moment to do some fun lettering, I will go ahead and fill in that spread. Gratitude, I'm actually a little bit behind today. I'm filming on the 19th because I'd like to try and get this video up this particular Sunday. So what would that be, the 21st, 22nd, whatever that day is going to be. I think it's the 22nd. So I'm like 2 days behind on my gratitude just because it's been kind of a busy week. So I'll go ahead and fill that in. But I really do like having this style because it's letting me practice my cursive. And one of the things you guys might remember from previous Plan With Me videos, that I was really not liking the fact that this pen was the 0.5 point was still seeming very big, especially for cursive. So what I've been using is this 0.38 Muji gel pen. So it's a bit of a finer nib, and I find that works really well for gratitude. I should probably be using a fountain pen or something like that, but I've been trying to keep the pens that I carry with me kind of to a minimum, and adding a fountain pen means bringing extra ink and all that, so I just haven't been playing around with that. But eventually I will get back to doing that. But for now, I like that it's a bit of a finer point. I feel like I can see where I'm a little shakier and which letters I need to work on more with a finer lines. Next up is reading goals, tracker habits, and goals. So reading goals, this is going to be basically business as usual. I have actually been doing really well. I hit my reading goal for the month, which was 4 books halfway through the month, which was really nice. It helps a lot. I've been reading audiobooks, or listening to audiobooks rather, and it's really good because I can, go for a walk and still be reading. So I feel that that's really been helping me now that I've been busier during the school year, to still have that enjoyment of having a story that I'm following and, actually having some time to read and all that. The other thing I do is sometimes I will put in pencil books that I'd like to get to. However, this list is only for books that I am currently working on. So that's why if I put the books that I wanted to read, I would run out of space in like 2 days. So that's why this reading goals is only for books that I'm currently working on. So I'll put the others in pencil, and if I get to them, then I'll erase it and write them in here. Otherwise, I'll migrate them to the next to the next spread. And again, this is probably not a very elegant system. I have reading lists. For example, I believe all 3 of these books are on my to read list on Goodreads. Some of them might have made my reading lists in my collection bullet journal, but sometimes I like to pull out a couple of books to just kind of remind myself that I wanted to work on them sooner rather than later. So that's what that's for. Tracker habits and goals, money goals rather. Tracker going fairly well. I am actually going to revamp this entire spread. For one thing, I'm getting a little bit bored with it. For another thing, I kind of want to change up what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. I find that having these money goals is good, but I need a little bit more detail to help me actually reach them. So I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to combine and reduce my tracker and habits for November because this is just kind of too much stuff that's going on, and I want to sort of streamline my process so it's just the important things. So we'll see how that goes. Then we get into my weeklies. So I'm still really enjoying this weekly. I've been toying around with the idea of trying to change it up. However, I don't really have a better idea at this point. So I've kind of just been letting it go and just trying to get used to it because obviously this is a fairly new setup for me. And so I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of waiting for inspiration, if you will. So anyway, weeklies. I have been using stickers because it's October and I really enjoy having a little bit of extra doodles for October. These stickers are actually from Paws Paper, and I'll link her and her Etsy shop down below. Also here, I had a bunch of blank space, and so I kind of went a little nuts because I love the autumn themed stickers. A couple of Calendex pages. I have a transportation tracker, so I carpool to the university 2 times a week, and so I wanted to keep track of, you know, who drove, who was in the car, what days we actually went, how much it was for that, so that I can kind of budget that. So this is the first month, well, September and October are the first 2 months, and we haven't actually worked out like what to pay. We're going to do that before the holidays. So I want to have this so that in the future I can actually budget how much my transportation costs are going to be so that I can work that in. Whereas right now I just don't know. So I'm just kind of keeping track. So I've got that. And then I had a whole bunch of stuff in TickTick, which is an app that I use. And I was realizing that I was putting things in TickTick that I didn't want to do. And so I took basically everything out. Now the only thing that's in TickTick is my reminder to read my serial reader. And I can probably actually even take that out. And my weekly reminder to balance my budget. But everything else has been moved into here so that I can actually kind of work on it. You can see that I've kind of been going through and doing things or deciding that they were no longer relevant and crossing them out. I also have a collections to make. I was kind of collecting various lists of collections that I wanted to have in my various notebooks. So, you know, some things that I wanted to have in my bullet journal, some things I wanted to have in my home bullet journal, various things. So I just made a master list here, and then as I work on them, I kind of cross them out. Or eventually, for example, I can actually do this. I wanted to do a November review and planning. I did the planning, but I did not do a review. I did the review, I just did not write it down. So I did my planning, but I can actually just cross out my review because I decided to not do a spread for my review. So that's that updated. I have a list of things that I want to work on for work and a list of things that I want to work on during the holidays because I have 2 weeks off and I have a ton of stuff that I need to try and get through now that I'm, you know, while I have those 2 weeks where I don't have to go to university and work every day. So that is what those are for. Next up, we have another weekly, still with the autumn theme. Dailies. I've been really loving this like metallic thing. You're going to notice that my colors between October and November are not going to change very much because I really like them. These stickers are actually from J.Creas, and I will link her and her Etsy shop in the description box down below as well. Then I just used up this blank page or this blank space that I had to do a little bit of lettering. This was the spread that I did for my 4th Letter Like a Lefty episode, so the different styles that I like to have. So I just did that in here because it's a good reference for me as well. It also shows me that I should probably look into maybe learning some different styles because I tend to use the same ones all the time. But you know, I know what I like, and I don't have to think about it. I just have a couple of go-to styles that I use, and that makes it really easy when I'm trying to set up spreads and stuff. Then we're up to this week, so it would be the 22nd that I want to post this video. I used day of the week stickers to kind of help with my setup. It just, you know, I really like lettering and everything, but putting down a sticker was just a little bit faster. And I actually did, it's really hard to see, I have no idea if you'll be able to tell, but I actually did a moon gold fine tech over this. I honestly don't know if that's going to show up on camera. And I did the rose gold fine tech over my little weekly line just to add a little bit of shimmer. It's really subtle, which I like. Then we're up to dailies. I had a bunch of space under Tuesday, so actually I have been adding Calendex things that have come up on other days. So these weren't necessarily Calendex items that I added on Tuesday, it was just that I had the space here. So rather than waste it, I just went ahead and did them at the bottom there. And then we are up to today. So now let's go ahead and count out the pages I need to go to October. And I actually did a little bit of laying out to kind of help me, since I am making some fairly big changes in November, at least for me. They might not seem very big, but they kind of are. However, let's go ahead and look. So I have the end of the week here, and I meant to actually leave another page so that I would have an extra spread in case I had collections, but I went ahead and I only left one page, so this will basically bring me to the end of the week. And I went ahead and did week 43 directly there. So I'm actually gonna leave it because, like I said, I already did a little bit of pre-setting up. So I have week 43, first half of the week, second half of the week, an extra spread for collections, and I hope that'll be enough to get me through basically to the end of October. And then I went ahead and I've got November. So November, you'll see I actually had some ideas on the theme I wanted to do, and I decided I'm going to go with autumn again because I just really like the autumn look. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that out. And you will see I also am not doing a full review because I kind of did my review on here and I just didn't write anything down. I just kind of did a mental review. So I did my setup the way that I normally do. I've actually decided to use 228 is going to be my color, my main color, and that's also going to be the color that I use for the edge of my pages here. And you'll see that I actually have to update. I need to finish out the edge of the pages for October, and then I'll have to do it for November, but I'll do that later. The other color I'm going to use is N75. So let's go ahead. N75. I've got, whoops, 228, and then I'm going to use this rose gold. It's actually copper is what they call it, but it's basically a rose gold copper kind of color. So this faber-castell, and I'm also going to use my bronze Uniball Signo because they're both kind of in that bronze rose gold copper family. I will probably use this brush pen. And I actually had somebody tell me how to pronounce it in a comment on one of my last videos, and I've completely forgotten. I think it's like Fudnosuke or something. But for those of you who speak English and have probably heard it pronounced Fudnosuke, that's basically how it sounds, like how it's spelled. That's not the correct pronunciation, but that's this pen. It is the soft tip. I've got my gray Staedtler fine liner. I've got my microns, which I'm not going to actually draw with those, and I totally forgot to grab earlier my black, where are you? There you are. Whoops. Somewhere in there. My black Pentel sign pen. So I'm just going to throw that guy to the side. You'll see my mess of pens. So this is actually the bag I keep on my desk, and it's got all of my color coding pens. It's got the 3 pens I'm using for my current units for school. So when I update my curriculum spacing, so I just leave them in here, and then that way I just kind of have them. And I do try and rotate out a couple of the pens so that I use different colors. But now that we're in kind of this fall time, it's a lot of kind of neutrals. So let's go ahead and do for my sign pen. Okay, so those are the main pens that I want to use. I've also got out my little triangle ruler and my long ruler for drawing lines if I decide to do that, which you guys know sometimes I don't bother with a ruler. And so there's my theme and my colors. Next up, I have my little layout for what I want to have in my monthly, and I've chosen actually a very long quote for me. I normally don't do quotes quite this long, but I found this really nice quote about Thanksgiving, and I thought it was just really fitting for November. So it's from Charmaine J. Ford, and it's, "Don't wait until the fourth Thursday in November to sit with family and friends to give thanks. Make every day a day of Thanksgiving." And I thought that was a really nice quote. So what I ended up doing on here is I have already got little pencil ticks for how I want to space out the quote, and I'm going to actually write a lot smaller. I've actually not decided if I'm going to do brush lettering for everything or if I'm going to do kind of a monoline. I've been really into that kind of monoline sort of stylized writing lately. So to give you an idea, kind of like what I did with the serif. And so I'm thinking that what I might do, something completely different for me, is to use a micron, so probably the 08, to use a micron and then go back and just have a couple of words stand out with what's the word? Brush lettering. Oh my goodness, guys, I'm sorry. So I'm going to kind of play around with that, which is why I ultimately chose a longer quote, because it makes more sense to use a different style of lettering if I have more to fit on the page. Anyway, we'll get to that. This is going to be for my November just intro, so November 2017, however I decide to do it. Next up is going to be my monthly, and so you'll see I've already got the tick marks out to do my calendar. And what I've decided is, since in October, let's go back here, I had tasks November, so the upcoming month, emails and happy mail. In order to kind of make better use of my space, I realized that I tend to not have a lot for my upcoming month or happy mail. So I'm going to change, and I'm going to do happy mail and my upcoming month, so in this case December. And then because I need more space for tasks and emails, I'm going to do tasks and emails over on this page. Next, memories and gratitude, honestly, is going to be the same as usual. I really like that setup. I like having both of these spreads, so that one's a pretty quick and easy setup. Next is going to be my reading and tracker. So what I've done down here is I've actually only got 4 habits, or tracking, however you want to look at it. And I made a note, I thought about maybe doing a mini calendar, but I decided I would do my normal tracking style. However, I would just drastically reduce the number of things that I'm actually keeping track of. And I wanted to, because I wanted to dedicate more space to my financial goals, because I wanted to add in a spot where I have my goals and that I have a way to track what I actually do. Because that was something I was finding out. For example, I have a budget for my groceries. However, I was finding that because I wasn't actually paying attention to how much I was spending each month, by the end of the month, I had already spent most of my budget on groceries. So I want to actually have a better idea. So I want to have a way of tracking that during the month. And I figured I would just use this tracking page to do that. So that is my setup. I'm going to go ahead and time-lapse you guys, and I'll come back at the end and let you know how everything went. That is my setup, and I'm laughing at myself because I made some pretty stupid mistakes, but that's okay. So let's go through spread by spread. The quote I actually think turned out fairly well. I didn't have a specific font or style in mind. I just kind of went with kind of what came out. And I like this sort of, not exactly messy, but stylized lowercase style. Stylized lowercase style. That was really repetitive, but I hope you guys know what I mean. So just this kind of a stylized look to it. And I ended up doing pretty much what I thought I was going to do, where I pulled a couple of words that I wanted to kind of highlight and then do the rest in a more like neutral layout. So what I ended up choosing was let's see if I can find it. So I used the 0.8 micron for all of the kind of less interesting, if you will, words in the quote. And then I did some words accented with both the copper Faber-Castell and my Pentel sign pen. So the sign pen I used for these guys, and then I used the Tombow sign pen or Tombow brush pen for Thanksgiving and also for November. And I have to say I really like how it came out. I think it's a really nice quote for Thanksgiving, and I think that deciding not to brush letter everything gives it a little something different, and it also was just much easier because the reality is brush lettering takes up a lot more space, and with a quote that was kind of this long, I don't think I would have fit everything on the lines the way I wanted to if I hadn't done it this way. So I think it turned out really well. Unfortunately, I always forget to let my pens dry before I flip the page, and so I've got a little bit of transfer from when I went back and I did 2017 over here. But you know what, it is what it is. So I have my quote with my attribution at the bottom, November 2017, pretty simply written. And then I have my monthly. So this, as I mentioned before, I decided to rework. I have all of the same elements as what I've had for the past couple of months. I just sort of reworked where they were on the spread. I realized that I didn't want to make this calendar any smaller. I do like having space to to actually write. So I didn't want to actually change the sizing of the calendar, which is why I ended up just moving around where things were. And you'll notice I kept that same sort of handwritten style, and as a whim, I decided to do these lines. So basically I did everything 2 squares high, and I just did a line in the middle. And that was just kind of a random thought that I had, and so I kind of went with it, and I did it throughout the month setup, so I think it looks kind of nice. I did write my days of the week up at the top, or at least the letter for it, which I normally don't. I just kind of felt like doing it. I have the week numbers, which I smudged one, oops. On the side here, you'll see I messed up here. Like this month I was rushing a little bit, and I messed up a couple of times, but you know what? Like that's what happens when you handwrite all of your spreads. Like there are bound to be mistakes, so live and learn. And you'll even notice here that my M in November is really screwy because I almost wrote a B, and I remembered at the last second that nope, that's an M, and so I just kind of made it work. But yeah, it's a little bit messy there. So I like having, well, let's see. I'm gonna see at the end of November how this actually worked, but I'm hoping that having smaller space for Happy Mail in December, because those tend to be the 2 that I don't have as much going on, I'm hoping that having this smaller space for them is going to work out, and having more space for tasks and emails is going to make it so that I can use my monthly more and not have as much in my daily. So we're going to see how that works, and you know, maybe in December I make a couple of more changes, but at least I've kind of identified the problem that I'm having, and I've made a tweak to see if that helps. So we'll see how this goes. Memories and gratitude. So once again, I did kind of the line setup, and I have decided that I'm going to do my numbers for my gratitude in this copper, and I think that'll look nice with having the what I usually use a black pen when I write, so it'll be a nice kind of contrast with that. Next up, reading goals and tracking, and I'm going to go back and do my line, because I did it on every other page, and it kind of weirds me out to not have it on this one. There we go. I'm just going to do it on those 2 because I ended up doing colons here. But let's go back. So reading goals, this is going to be standard. I'm not changing that. It works really well for me. So that one was kind of that was kind of a boring spread, we'll just say. Didn't add any color or anything. And then tracking. This is the one where I really decided to make some changes. So first off, I've not really done any of the subheaders that I normally do, with the exception of the goals, because that's going to be basically a task list. I just did a kind of a global tracking header, and I kept my standard vertical tracking. However, I don't have any line separations because I've only got 4 things, and this is definitely a big change for me. I've been tracking taking my medication in the morning. That one stayed because I like having that reminder just in case for some reason I forget to do it right when I get up. This will be like, oh yeah, I have to go and do that. So that one I wanted to stay, but I've stopped. I'm going to try not tracking my steps because it's really just information. And if it's information and it's not actually changing anything, then I can just leave that information in my health app on my phone, because it's actually the health app. I have an iPhone, and so the health app actually has like a pedometer function. And so if I'm not actually doing anything with this information, then there's no reason for me to copy it every day. And here, I'll just leave it in the app. Now, again, who knows if at the end of this month, I might decide, no, I really like seeing that information, and I'll put it back in. But at least for now, I'm not going to. I'm going to have flossing again, which that is a habit that I've been working on. I am not very consistent, and so I'm going to keep that on here. I just didn't give it a little mini monthly calendar because I was trying to kind of consolidate my space. I do have serial readers still on here, and I think I might end up taking it off TickTick because I do have it on here, so it's, you know, I don't really need it to be a reminder in 2 places. I do still have Sunshine and Stationery, so that's if I post on Instagram, and I do like kind of seeing that because I can go back and see how busy I was, and I see, you know, how often I actually post. However, I did take off both Amino and YouTube. So I took off Amino because I honestly haven't been using it. It's just one more social media thing, and I want to really focus on Instagram and YouTube and not kind of spread myself too thin. And I took YouTube off because I now have a social media bullet journal, and I have an editorial calendar in the front of my bullet journal, so there's really no reason for me to also track it on here because I don't change when I post, so it's really like once or twice a week I have a dot and then nothing the rest of the time, so I decided to take that off. So that was how I sort of minimized my tracking. I'm hoping that having fewer things to track will help me focus on the ones that I do want to track. We'll see how that goes. And then the other big change is over here with my money goals. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I like having the money goals on here, but what I was realizing is that I didn't have a way, aside from like checking it off or not, of really following through to see how I was doing on them. So I have a place here for money goals, and I'm going to write those in at the end of the month like I always do. I like to wait until I see how the actual month went before I set up the goals for the next month. And I've added food. So I went through and I said, you know, if I want to have this as my budget, I need to divide it by the number of weeks in the month. So I'm going to end up doing on here, I'm going to have my month goal, and then I'm going to have a sub goal that's how much I want to plan to spend every week, like how much I've budgeted per week. And then at the end of the week, I can go back through and see how much I've actually spent. And so I have this little section here where I can just track that. And you will notice that I completely screwed up. I added lines so that I could do these little side, like the little cut off corners. However, I based it off of 4 weeks, and the month actually has 5. So that was my bad. So as I was going through, I realized that I actually needed to use all the bottom box here. So I ended up writing in week 48 right down here, so it's a little bit cut off. And to make it even, I just wrote total up at the top. So really the total should have been at the bottom, but that was, I drew the box before I wrote everything in, which that wasn't a good choice on my part. So in the future, if I keep this particular tracker, I'll write the weeks in and then draw the box around it. So we'll see. And then the other thing I wanted to do is, one of my goals is I'd like to save a certain percentage of my income. And so I would like to note at the end of the month how much I actually saved. Now, I do actually have an automatic save function from my bank, where on, I believe it's the 5th of the month, I have a certain amount that just automatically gets moved into my savings account. However, I would like to actually save more than that, and so that's why I have this down here, to see at the end of the month how much was I actually able to save on, you know, including but also on top of the amount that I had scheduled to go into my savings account. So that is it. The next page, as usual, is going to be my weekly. I'm not going to set it up yet because, like you guys saw before, I still have another week left in October, so you never know if I'm going to end up changing setups or what have you. But that is my monthly setup. I have to say I like the style changes this time. I think it's kind of a fun look, and it really didn't add very much more time because I was basically just drawing lines. I'm hoping that this new setup over here and the new setup with my tracker is going to help me be even more productive and even more on top of things. And I'm going to also try and work really hard not to have as much of my dailies, but to really think about the tasks I have at my monthly level and my weekly level, so that I can minimize the amount that I'm migrating, and hopefully with having fewer tasks on a page at any given moment, that will help me focus on actually getting them done, rather than just having a whole bunch of tasks that feel really overwhelming that I end up migrating every day or every week or what have you. So with this, I think that this is going to mean that I'm going to need to do more brain dumps, and I'm going to need to sort of organize the open brain dumps that I have to kind of keep the tasks to a manageable level. But I'm hoping that this will help me reduce the amount of migration that I do and increase the amount of tasks I actually accomplish. So if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. I will link all of the supplies that I used and anybody that I mentioned in this video, so you guys can check them out. That will also be in the description box. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!